What's up, y'all? Today I have a good friend on. Me and him have known each other for several years. We've been doing business together behind the scenes. Some things that you probably need to know about, but if you're not looking closely, you may not know about. But he also works for a company that is one of the most sought after companies out here in Cincinnati. And I am absolutely jealous of it because I would love to work there at one point in my life. I'm kind of past that at this point, but at that point there was just like this golden paved road that everyone told me that that building had just to get inside of it, and it is an amazing organization. He's doing a job in which we need to learn more about because frankly I believe that people like him probably know a little bit more about how our country works, even though he doesn't work in government or anything like that, but he is working in finance, and we live in a capitalist society, so we need to understand finance, and we need people like him helping our companies go so we can have good finance. So with that being said, let's get to it, man. He's going to break down at some point all the details for you to know exactly how to do his position and get into that role and what it actually means. But before we get to that, we have to know the most important question here, which allows you all to even see him on screen, which is, do you like your job, man?
I absolutely love my job.
Okay, that's perfect, man. Because frankly, it's people that wake up every day and hate Mondays, and here we know that we are not trying to condone that or put anybody in front of us that's going to allow other people to live that lifestyle where they wake up on Monday and are mad that it's here. So, with that, man, the first question outside of the requirement to get here is, what was the first profession that you remember wanting to have as a youth?
Oh, yeah, that's a really good question. I remember wanting to do something in mathematics and science. I thought science was so cool. I knew I had an affinity for math, but something about science just absolutely captured my interest, especially things to do with space. So I wouldn't say that I wanted to be an astronaut, but I thought something in the physical sciences would have been really, really cool.
Hmm. Do you have, so you didn't actually know, you just knew you wanted
No, I didn't know. I knew which subjects I liked in school, but I didn't know enough about the outside world, what jobs were available, what people really did as a profession, and how they translated their interests in school into an actual profession. And I just didn't have the level of experience to know what a job would look like. I just knew what I liked in school.
see, and that's why we have this. Is because at the end of the day, I stress this and I can't stress it enough, which is why this thing is going to be named the way it is. And that is, we got to stop telling our kids they can be anything they want when they grow up, because they can't. You can't grow up to be anything you want. There is literally no titled anything. You have to let a kid know something. When they tell you what they're interested in, you have to create exposure and opportunity for them to learn more about that. And so the more and more we get into these interviews, people get exposed to organizations, businesses, jobs that allow that they may be able to actually utilize the skills that they enjoy. So I'm assuming that you ended up utilizing, which clearly you do. If you're a person that loves math, you're in an industry that's primed for you to be successful as well as be happy in it, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I ended up finding a path forward to connecting my love for math into an industry that I knew would be lucrative and really set me up for a good path in life, and to be able to give my future kids everything that I wanted to be able to give them. And frankly, from a really selfish standpoint, I just wanted to live a certain lifestyle, and I knew that this path would allow it for me.
Yeah, it's something about people who are in charge of the finance in a company that just know how to make sure that their finances are right. I definitely get that idea. Well, okay, man. So let's get to it. I've held off my audience. Sometimes I make them wait too long, and today it's kind of a short wait. So go ahead and explain exactly what your job title is and what it means.
So my job title is Senior Finance Manager for Procter and Gamble, specifically personal health care. So consider the products out there that you're maybe familiar with, like Vicks Vapo Rub, Dayquil, NyQuil, um, ZQuil, products like that are all part of the personal health care portfolio and Vicks portfolio at Procter and Gamble. So I'm a senior finance manager at Procter and Gamble.
Okay. So what was it officially that grabbed your attention, and at what point did you begin to focus on the profession that you're currently in, or did you fall into it by chance? Like the actual
Yeah, yeah, I ended up being very intentional about going into finance, but it took me a really long time to get there. So in the start, in high school, I figured out that I liked math. So when I went to college at Ohio State, I decided to go into business because I didn't know specifically what I wanted to do. And business is a really great degree if you want to have some level of focus, but you're not sure exactly what you want to do because you can go in so many different directions. So I ended up being an accounting and finance double major, and then eventually figured out that would take me a little too long to graduate. And I thought the most versatile degree would be accounting. So I went with just accounting. And then by the end, I ended up with a job offer at a company I'd never heard of. It was called Ernst and Young. And they are a professional accounting firm that does auditing of other large companies to make sure that their finances are correct and in abiding all the rules and laws is what auditing means. So I started at Ernst and Young, and it's hardcore accounting. And I found out really quickly that I didn't like accounting very much. And it turns out I was really, really smart to choose a path that was really flexible, because after a couple years, I was like, okay, accounting's not for me. So what can I do? It was a very easy transition to go to finance at Procter and Gamble, and I've been doing finance ever since. And I totally love it. I think it's a super versatile career, and it's incredibly impactful to whatever company you're working for.
Man, you hit something spot on the head, in which I feel that no one's really telling our youth. I don't care who you are, what you're interested in. Maybe what you're interested in does matter. I don't think it really should, just for a safety net. But if you're
Yeah.
going to college, man, I feel that in this world, we need to start telling our youth about the nothing degrees like the ones that I have. I mean, I made money off of them, but the degrees like a psychology and you don't get your doctorate in it, or a master's in sociology, and you don't get your doctorate in it, or journalism and you are an athlete, so you don't get any good internships and
Yeah.
real time to get any real exposure. I think that to allow our youth and our and people in general to continue down these paths are unfair and unjust. And frankly, one of the things that I believe, and I've told several kids I used to mentor and when I used to work in social services, I believe that every child, every person who decides to go to college should either study marketing, business, finance, engineering, of course, because of the way the world's going, and
Mhm.
IT. Um,
Yeah.
Pick one of those five where you want to major or minor. You need to at least minor. So if you want to be a psychology major, sure, shoot for the
Yeah.
stars and learn about that cognitive dissonance or whatever, and see how far that goes without a doctorate. But what you can do is also have that minor, because that minor also opens up doors for you, because it shows you have some level of understanding, some level of experience. And companies frankly are always willing to usually train people up depending on what company, of course. So I think that you hit something on the head that unlocks a lot of opportunity for people in letting them know about finance. So when you were in school, did you know that finance was going to be such a flexible job? I know you said that while you were at the accounting firm, you realized it, but did you know that in advance?
You know, I didn't know exactly, but I knew it in a very broad sense that it was a flexible degree, and that's exactly why I chose it. And I would say most people are not making those types of intentional decisions at the college age, because you just don't know a whole lot of things. And I didn't know a whole lot of things. I didn't even know what a CPA was, and I ended up getting one just to go to Ernst and Young. I mean, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. I just knew that going into accounting would give me options, and I wanted to have as many options as possible. So I completely agree with everything you're saying about making sure that you're picking a major that will allow you to be flexible after college, because you're just in a phase of your life where you're learning so much about the world that you really don't know what you want. And you'll find when you go to companies, sometimes you'll have lots of times you'll have engineers that are now working as marketers, or you'll have marketers who are now working in finance, or, so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
flexibility is key.
You mentioned CPA, and I know that if people have been out here in this world living as an adult, they know that that title it comes with a level of respect. And I would love for you to break down what that actually is, what it means for the audience, so that if they do like accounting and they do want to stay in the industry and they hear someone talking about a CPA, they know exactly what that is.
Yeah, so CPA first and foremost stands for Certified Public Accountant. So if, for example, if you know someone who does taxes, or they have an accounting firm that does the accounting for a business, a lot of times those firms will be what are called CPA firms, and it stands for Certified Public Accountant.
Okay, okay, man. Let's step back. Let's step back and let's talk just life a little bit, and
Yep.
being a person who knows finance. How do you see the world compared to the average, just American slash average person, since you do have a finance degree, since you
Yeah.
do have certain levels of understanding that the average person doesn't, and you may also have learned additional things outside of your profession that people always complain and saying that the educational system is not teaching our kids.
Yeah, I love that question, because I think there are a lot of things that, because I'm in the finance profession, the curtain is kind of pulled back, and I can kind of see how America works. And my grandmother, we call her Mama, she has a great saying that money is a game. And it absolutely is a game. It's about where do you invest, when do you invest, how do you invest, how do you protect your assets. It's a huge rabbit hole that I won't go into. But the point being that absolutely, it's given me a different point of view on the country at large. And I think maybe a good example of that would be understanding how mutual funds work.
Yeah.
So, knowing that my company at P&G, when I'm looking at our personal finances and I'm figuring out what's worth investing in, it's really easy to make that connection to my personal life, and ask myself what's worth investing in. And I take a lot of those same approaches to my personal decisions. Now, on a bigger scale, seeing how P&G operates and what they invest in, whether it's, do we hire more people, right? We saw a huge tax cut for corporations during the Trump presidency. And I saw exactly how our corporation responded to that. And we're a Fortune 100 company. So you can extrapolate to say, how are all the companies in the country reacting to this, and how's it impacting all the way down to local communities? And just being able to make those connections has made a huge difference for the way that I see the world, and the way that I see the nation, and the way that I think about capitalism.
Yeah. So you mentioned corporations and the tax cuts that people talk about, but what are some of the basic things that you may pay attention to in a day-to-day life that we probably should be paying attention to that we're not? If you got anything.
Yeah, I think the way the stock market and the interest rates work. So one, the health of the stock market is going to inform the way that the federal bank changes their interest rates. So if the stock market is doing really well, and it also means that maybe the economy is doing really well, and jobs are doing great, well, they're going to raise interest rates, which means if you're buying a house, or you're buying a car at that time in the economy, you're going to be paying higher rates versus if you were to purchase an asset during a recession. So for me, maybe it makes a lot of sense, if I know that we're on the brink of a recession, which just means a downturn in the general market, that I might want to wait a couple of years to buy a car, so that I can make sure I get the best deal on the car from the dealership, and make sure that I get the best interest rate from the bank on the loan for that car. Another really good example is that my wife and I purchased a home about 5 years ago. And now that I understand the way the market moves, I understand that interest rates are at an all-time low right now. So it was a great time to refinance our house. Even though I had to spend some money in order to do that deal, the interest rate on my house is lower, and I'm paying tens of thousands of dollars less in interest over the term of our loan because I knew to take advantage of the market and refinance my home. So I know some of that's maybe a little bit complex depending on the audience, but hopefully that's a really tangible way that you can translate finance knowledge into making personal gains for yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. They say that a person's home is going to potentially be, for the average person, their largest investment, and so
Absolutely.
and the need to bring that up to people's awareness. The other thing, though, is you mentioned you were a CPA.
Yes.
Once a year, we all got to deal with taxes. And I have two questions. I'm going to put them back to back, and so you can just go ahead and answer them however you feel in whatever order. First off, is why do taxes feel so intimidating to me? I mean, well, because that's what I'm asking. But in general, why do taxes tend to feel so intimidating for many people, and the concern about doing something wrong and becoming Wesley Snipes? But there's also the part of, every single year, somebody needs to debunk this thing like ASAP. Every time tax season comes around, those YouTube videos start popping up on Facebook and everything of, you don't need to pay your taxes. See, you the IRS, and they start breaking down all these
Oh,
reasons.
I haven't seen that one.
Are you serious? Bro,
People
man,
telling you not to pay your taxes. Yeah, don't click on that one.
I'm gonna send it to you. As soon as tax season comes around. It's like it just shows up on my news feed. It's like they know that I'm stressed out. They're like, you ain't gotta do it. They're not the government. So can you debunk that a little bit on whether or not we should, or whether we have to pay our taxes? Obviously, I do. But also, why is the tax thing just so intimidating, mixed with the fact that we don't get taught how to do this in school?
It's hard to say if it's intimidating on purpose or not, but there's an undeniable fact that it's extremely complex, and most people don't understand it, even at a high level. So answer number one, you got to pay your taxes. So stay out of trouble with the IRS. That is not a problem you want to have in your life. So pay your taxes, but do it in an effective way that's maximizing the amount of income that you get to keep in your home. So at a super high level, the way taxes work are, you go to your job, you earn, let's call it $500 a week. Over a year, let's say you earn $40,000. You're going to be charged tax, which is just money that the government collects against the income that you earn. So there are a couple different ways to reduce your taxable income. So what you bring in is your income, and the amount that you get taxed on is your taxable income. So in general, everyone in the country gets what's called the standard deduction. And I would say that most people, unless you're pretty rich, are typically taking the standard deduction, which I think last year was like $12,000 for couples or something like that. So if you were going to pay 30% on your income, you'd rather pay 30% on $30,000 instead of the full $40,000 that you earned. Now, the question that you'll ask yourself now that you're like, oh, the trick is to lower my taxable income, the next question you're going to ask is, well, how much lower can I get it? And so a lot of people use a lot of sort of tricks, so to speak, in order to lower their taxable income. One way to do that is to take special deductions. So if you don't opt for the standard deduction, you can take, and I'm not being a very good, and I'm an inactive CPA, by the way, I should definitely put that on the record, but it is to take itemized deductions, what's called itemized deductions. So if you make contributions to charities, or if you own a second home, or you have rental property, or you use your bedroom as an office, all of these things are ways to get extra deductions on your taxable income. And all that deductions mean is reducing deducting from your income down to what your taxable income is. So so if you can itemize deductions effectively, you can get even bigger discounts, so to speak, versus the standard deduction. Hopefully that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, it does. That was going to be my next question, is the conversation about deductions. And frankly, I mean, we work together talking about real estate from time to time indirectly because of what we do together. And one of the things that I feel that many people want to know is, where do you find all the information on getting deductions? Because I mean, obviously, this past year, and it's an ongoing conversation. Not trying to be political, but
Hmm.
the taxes situation and how much the president paid. And when you're listening to people in real estate, they're like, well, that's how he did it, is the real estate, and they start breaking it down with all these things like, based on real estate, this. And I don't know his whole portfolio and what's all in there, whether or not
Yeah.
he really did pay too much or too little. Not too much, but too little or not. That's a whole different conversation for people to actually know those details. But I do know that there are certain people that understand that in real estate, there's a lot of opportunity to write off things. And
Yep.
where does one learn this information that's not just real estate, but just across the board? Where are these deduction books that we can get our hands on and try to address it? Because every time they get on TV, they tell us to our face, it's not your duty to pay a whole lot of taxes. It's your duty to pay your amount of taxes and your fair share based off of whatever you're giving back to this country. So,
Yeah.
with that being said, how do we get our hands on that book so we know if we're paying only our fair share opposed to extra?
Well, let me start off by saying that I agree. I think the people that are angry at wealthy people for not paying enough taxes are misdirecting their anger. And I think the anger is absolutely justified.
But
It's
anybody,
just that
I
the
want to be clear, I ain't say nothing about who to be mad at.
nope, and neither am I. Neither
Yeah,
am I.
okay.
So so the people who aren't paying many taxes just know how to take advantage of the system, and the government is prescribing who has to pay how many taxes, right? Based on what you can deduct from your taxable income. And so sort of that's kind of observation number one, right? Just to understand that it's the government that is allowing these exceptions to be made so that people aren't paying as much on taxes. Now, I think it's important to note that you have to understand that being taxed as an individual is a lot different than being taxed as a company. So what you're really being taxed on as a company isn't how much money you make, right? Like, so I go sell this cup for $10, and I'm not going to get taxed on $10. It cost me $8 to produce this cup in order to sell it. So I really only made $2. So the government's going to tax me on $2, not on $10. And that's what a lot of these companies are doing. And when they have bad years and they have a negative loss, like it cost me $12 to produce this cup this year, but I only sold it for 10. Well, I'm not going to get taxed this year at all. And not only that, I can roll over those losses into future years, which will then reduce future years' taxable income. So there are a lot of tricks. So that's thing number one, just to understand that. Now, more directly to your question about where to find these books and resources, I think number one is go to school for it. If you're super curious and you want to make a living out of it, definitely go to college for it. For me, I don't typically read books. I typically use YouTube as a resource. And I think because of school, I know enough to be dangerous, and I know I can absorb the information on YouTube a little bit quicker. So I don't know any books off the top of my head, but I can absolutely research a couple really good ones and make that recommendation offline.
Yeah, definitely let me know, and I'll add it to this video.
Yeah,
If
perfect.
you've given it to me, then I have them right here.
Yes.
uh, no, but the other thing is do you remember a particular book that you had in grad school, like a textbook, like a course that made? Because I mean, frankly, we ain't all about to be CPAs. I'm done with school, at least to this.
Oh yeah, I'm done.
Learning as much as I can to be amazing at what I do. But as for going back to be a CPA, I have no desire. But I would love to know
Yeah,
enough to at least be able to cover my tail every year.
yeah.
I'm sending it off to somebody else once the numbers start getting bigger. But as a like until then, I want to be able to cover my tail. So yeah, do you even have a memory of maybe a textbook?
Yeah, I think the most memorable for me was the Becker. Now I know this is kind of going back to the CPA thing again, but Becker CPA course, which is what I studied in order to pass my CPA exams, and it was extremely detailed. And even though I had taken some of this stuff in college, it was the first time that I had looked at it down to that level of detail. So that stood out in my memory really well. Um, and then the other thing, and this is kind of a surprising resource maybe, but TurboTax. Once I went out on my own and I started doing my own taxes, uh, because I wasn't a tax accountant. A CPA doesn't just do taxes, and so I didn't know much about personal taxes at all. So I started using TurboTax, and as you go through TurboTax, they will show you every single item that you can go through in order to see if you qualify for an itemized deduction. And they also have resources in TurboTax to help you understand what each deduction means. So maybe a life hack, but pay $20 for TurboTax, and you can see how every single part of your taxes works throughout that process.
So this is my last question in this conversation, but it would be unfair for me not to ask because it's such a big question and extremely loaded. And you are not the person who put the tax system in place. I must stress that. I'm not on that or calling you out like you the expert completely on why these things are, because I know how my question may come off. But my immediate thought when you're saying this is, and I remember someone talking about this. This might be in that same breakdown from that guy saying you don't have to pay taxes, or a different video from that time. But I think one of the conversations was like, hey man, at the end of the day, the government knows. That's why they're taxing you. The government knows exactly how much you're getting paid. Like it's not something that's going past them. They know how much you're being paid. They're already taking money guaranteed out of every check. Why are we having like the information we have to put into this, give the CPA or have to do with the tax act or TurboTax? It's like why is it on us? Like why don't you y'all know that y'all gonna do this every year? We know that you have access to all of our information,
Yeah.
everything about us. We can't hide it, which is why you'll come for us if we don't do something correctly. So why is it, at least on the basic level, the person who just has a regular job, they don't have investments or anything like that. Their only thing they gotta be acknowledged for when it comes to taxes is their job and their business, not their business, but their job. Why is it just not automatic that the government does that? Like it doesn't make sense.
You know what? I don't know. I really don't know. My best guess is that the government probably isn't as efficient as we maybe all suspect that they are. I think they don't know exactly how much we make. And to be more specific, the government isn't taking money out of each one of your paychecks. Your employer is taking money out of each one of your paychecks on behalf of the government. So they're more or less guessing based on your home situation, because the amount of money they take is going to be different based on how much money you make, how many dependents you have. Independence just means if you have children or maybe someone older in your household that you're taking care of. Are you married? Is there so stuff like that is going to impact how many dollars they take out of your paycheck. And hopefully at the end of the year, you don't owe any extra money to the government, and the government doesn't need to give you a refund. And I'll throw this one on for free. People think getting a tax refund is like the best thing in the world. They're giving you back your own money.
Your own money.
It means that you overpaid during the year. And you know what the government did with that extra money that they got, that they eventually gave back to you? They go and invest it. And this actually goes back to your question about what do I know about the outside world because of finances. I know that the government is going back and investing your money over that year that they're basically borrowing it from you. That's essentially what they're doing. And they're making a return on that money. So they're paying you back the $15 that they owe you, but they made $17.
And
So
gave
they
you
get to pocket $2 for free. And they're not sharing any of the profit that they made over those dollars. And then they come back and ask to increase the taxes the next year on top of that. So
I'm not gonna touch that. There's so many things I could touch on that one.
there's a lot. There's a lot. I'm an inactive CPA, y'all. This is just my take.
We have a good conversation, but that's the other part, though. I mean, you said something which is, I mean, I misspoke and said the government's taking it out, but you're like to some degree, it also points out, and frankly, maybe originally the government wasn't built like that, but we have so much technology. There's no excuse that some billionaire, some millionaire couldn't put together some system for the government to have already in place. But let's take the government out of this equation. I heard what you said, which was our companies are sending this information off to the government, which means our companies simply have to. I mean, many people got to fill out a lot of paperwork when you start a job, and some of those are connected to taxes. Why don't you just give me all of the questions up ahead? I fill that out then before any money and conversations like that have come about, and then my company sends it off.
Yeah.
And because they literally have all the information.
Yeah.
They're doing your job for you. You just create that as a new thing that a business has to do. And guess what? There will be a system already in place to cover that, and it probably won't even take any extra time. It'll just be a couple more, maybe 10 more minutes of push the buttons, and we'll call it a day. I might be oversimplifying it, but I do not underestimate the power of technology in 2020. Like, I just can't do that because I know how many brilliant minds are out there. And to say that we're doing this efficiently is total BS, especially knowing that people are
I agree.
This thing. And
totally agree.
That's why we're still doing it that way.
That's why I guess that it's simply inefficiency. You know, the optimist in me wants to say that it's not intentional. It's just typical government inefficiency. But I don't know. I think you're asking the right questions, though.
Mm-hmm. Well, I might be asking too many questions. So let me get out of trouble in the hairs of anybody who's working on this game and want to respond to me. So what you have done is break down how much you actually know. And for anyone who's been listening and is trying to follow and may have gotten lost and felt intimidated, I must stress to you, and this is why that question is coming. To my awareness, when he was 3, he didn't know this information. To my awareness, when he was 10, he probably didn't know this information. So can you talk? I know. I'm just trying to point out that this ain't inherent. So at what point did you begin to actually understand this level of information? Not just this level of information, but just start learning this information and was able to actually articulate it so people can see that it's not just the smart guy in front of us talking about it. So I don't know if I'll ever be able to do it because I don't know it. It's like, yeah, it takes time. So can you just break that down for the audience for us?
Yeah, I would say that it's a constant education and constant level of growth and self-awareness to be able to explain concepts like that. I would say that maybe even just a few years ago, I wouldn't have been able to explain some of that, like the refinance, for example. I learned that this year. You know what I mean? And I've been working professionally in the finance industry for roughly 8 years now. And some of this stuff is still new to me. So it takes a long time. In my background, I grew up in Cincinnati. I went to high school here. I eventually went to college at Ohio State, and then eventually got my CPA, as you know. But I didn't know anything about the business world. I didn't know that Ernst & Young was a company until I happened to get the offer. I just put myself in good places at good times that helped me get in that position. I didn't know what a CPA was. I had no idea. I ended up having to do an extra 5th year in college in order to get enough credits in order to take the CPA. And I only took the CPA because I already got a job offer with Ernst & Young, who requires you to get a CPA in order to work there. And so like I'm constantly learning new things. And as long as you work hard and you put yourself in the right places and you surround yourself with the right people, you're going to funnel yourself towards something prosperous. And I think that's what I did, because I didn't know all these things, not when I was 3, not when I was 10, not even when I was 20. So don't expect to know everything. Just put yourself in the right place at the right time, which is, of course, easier said than done. so for me, I'll give maybe even another couple examples, because I think once you get to the point where you know what you're talking about, I think you're absolutely right, Mario. People envision that you always knew what you were doing. And for me, I'll tell you the level of inexperience I had. So my one of my internships, my second internship in college, and an internship is just a temporary job that you get during the summer while you're in college, was at Great American Insurance. And on the first Friday there, they said it was casual Friday. I had been coming in with a suit every day, and they said it was casual Friday. So I showed up on Friday in jeans and a t-shirt. I didn't know what business casual meant. And I just assumed. I look so stupid, y'all. Like I cannot impress on you how little that I knew at the time that I would show up to an internship in a t-shirt and someone had to pull me aside and say, that's not what business casual means. So now I know what business casual is. I do now. I know what business casual is, and there's a whole lot of levels too in between business formal and business casual.
Right now, business casual.
Yeah, exactly. And you would think if you're wearing a jacket that it's not business casual, but it is, and so it's not wearing a jacket. But anyway, so that's a big example. And then another thing is growing up the way I grew up. Being Black in America, you almost live in two different worlds. And I won't go too far on this tangent, but I grew up speaking a certain way that people around me understood. And once I got into a professional career at Ernst & Young, people didn't exactly know what I was talking about all the time, which is really tough. And, a specific example was we had a training, and I asked the instructor, I was like, I basically said, yo, teach, what's the lunch move? And she was like, what? And I was like, oh, I thought maybe she couldn't hear me. I said, what's the lunch move? And she was like, I don't know what you're saying. And it dawned on me. I was like, oh my God, I'm speaking slang and she has no idea. And it was like mind blowing for me. So I had to explain to her, I was like, I just want to know what's for lunch today.
You say at no point, wow, man, this is crazy. So the government really are finessing these people out of their money.
Nah, it didn't just pop into my head. So that was a long-winded way, and I'll wrap up that point. But that was a long-winded way of saying that I didn't always know what I was doing or what I wanted or the way the world worked. And I came from a really humble place in that I didn't know what I was doing, but the perseverance and the intentionality of making sure that I was putting myself in good places paid off in the end.
Okay. Well, we're about to get to you. I mean, you touched on some of it, so go ahead and include and develop on it. We're about to just go ahead and go down your journey. And by the way, before we do that, I just have to say, man, as a person who comes from the University of Cincinnati, I sure do appreciate you for saying you went to Ohio State University. I appreciate that. Primarily because of you just not being over the top and adding another word to the name of that school. So I definitely appreciate you leaving that one word off that I'm assuming you all tend to try to overdo and cause people to be like whatever.
I know which words you're talking about, and I don't want to take the bait. I don't want to be the one to say it now.
No, but a quick true story. Sorry. So I remember I ran track for UC. My coach, I had multiple coaches. This keeps him out of trouble. So one of my coaches, Ohio State was there, and the person on the speaker kept saying, "Yeah, such in the Ohio State, the Ohio State, the Ohio State." And I see my coach with his frowned up face, like, you know what? He just disappeared. And I'm like, what's happening? And all you heard in the background, because clearly they didn't step away or turn the mic off, was you say the Ohio State one more time. And it was on a loudspeaker, it was mumbled, but everybody that was there was like, oh, we know who that is, and we know what just happened.
That's funny.
It was hilarious. It was like, okay, yeah.
People get carried away. Ironically, when
It
I
was a
don't
home
say
meet.
it,
That's why my coach could do that. It was a home meet.
it's when I don't say it, normally it's somebody else in the room will say, "Don't you mean the Ohio State?" And I'm like, "I sure did."
Hold on, let me get some. Had to get that out.
Mhm.
Something about what you said just choked me up. All right,
Bro,
man.
come on now.
Oh man. Okay, so and if you went to UC and you're an athlete, you understand why it's a little bit like it ain't no jealousy. It's
I love UC.
there.
UC's doing great things this year too.
We are with
Yeah,
Coach Pickle, who's most likely gonna leave us at some point, like every other coach does. Oh no,
yeah. Well, he definitely got y'all on the board this year.
he does. He does. So go ahead, man. Let's hear the story of how you took your way into this industry, as well as any details that just makes it a little bit clear for others to be able to do so. And if you took a longer
Yeah.
way, definitely highlight at some point how you could have did it easier.
Yeah. So I'll try to put it succinctly, but I went to high school and I knew that I liked math, and so I figured business made a lot of sense. Um, but the problem with high school is that they don't typically have enough electives to let you really truly explore what you might be interested in. Fortunately, my school did have an elective, and it was called it was like Finance 101 or something like that. And so we learned about NPVs, which are net present value. It's just the way that you figure out how much money is worth, to put it shortly. And and so I was like, okay, I'm kind of into this. And then eventually I went to college and I decided that accounting made the most sense for me. It was the most versatile. If I ended up not liking accounting for some reason, I could go do finance, I could go do HR, I could go into logistics, etc. So I ended up majoring in finance, or in accounting rather, in college. And I was spot on. I ended up with an interview at Ernst and Young, which is a leading CPA firm. CPA standing for Certified Public Accountant, and I worked there for a year. I got my CPA certification while I was there. Then I went to J.P. Morgan Chase.
Before you keep going, you mentioned an
Yep.
internship earlier, and what year was
Yes,
it?
you're right. I skipped over that. Let me restart so I can capture that.
Are you good? Go ahead. Just go ahead.
You're good. Okay.
Yeah.
So so the the internships that I had in college were sort of my first foot in the door, right? So I'm an accounting major. I'm in college, and sophomore year I do my first business internship at Aldi. So Aldi Foods, and I had no idea what to expect. They're a really sort of non-traditional company in a lot of ways. In the first place, if you've ever shopped there, you could probably pick up on that. And it didn't work out for me. They didn't give me an offer. It was really kind of general business. Uh, I was a general manager internship, which meant that the general manager sort of owned, so to speak, um, 3 or 4 different stores in the region, and they were responsible for managing all of those stores and managing all of the store managers that managed each of the individual stores.
What were
And it just didn't work out for me. It
you doing for the internship? Like, what was the actual job?
Yeah, so the internship was interesting, and they do this for their full-time hires too. So you start your internship working in the store as a cashier, because Aldi wants you to learn the business from the bottom up. So
Mm.
I was literally ringing up groceries, and I had never worked in a grocery store, so this was a new experience for me. I was ringing up groceries, I was stocking shelves, all of these things, and then I progressed to doing ride-alongs with the district managers. So the district managers, or the area managers, who I was directly reporting to, they would drive around to each one of their stores each day. They would check on the level of cash. They do audits. They would check on the sales that the business was doing each day. They would make sure that the property was in good condition. They would manage the handling of any maintenance and repairs that needed to be done. So very lean organization in terms of management chain. So, if you have a job, you have a big job. and you have to cover a lot of space for your job. And so I would say that that was kind of the internship in a nutshell.
And that's all based off of finance. I heard the finance aspects of the manager and what they
Yeah, this one was
internship.
general business. I wouldn't call it finance. I wouldn't call it accounting. I think this one was a step just into the business world. So, you'll hear the term as you progress called general management. And I would consider this to be general management, sort of a jack of all trades and a master of none. So no specific specialization. It was just generally managing the business end to end.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, well, you said you had several internships. So that's not the only internship, right?
That's right. That's right. I had a second internship, which was at Great American Insurance in Cincinnati. And what I was doing there was,
These internships, by the way, and then keep going. What year were these internships?
let me see. My first internship must have been like 2010. And then I think my second one was, no, 2009 was probably my first internship. Then
Year were
2010
in college?
was my second.
It's like junior year, sophomore year.
Yeah, so I got my first internship with Aldi. I got that going into my junior year. Yes, that's right. And then the internship with Great American, I got going into my senior year, my first senior year, because remember, I did a fifth year in order to get enough credits for the CPA. So, so after Aldi didn't work out, I didn't get the offer. I wasn't a good fit. I didn't know enough about the business world. There was just too much of a learning curve for me to overcome, which was really tough. And again, here's the perseverance part. I learned everything I needed to learn from that internship, and I stayed with the business route. I stayed with the accounting route, and I went to Great American Insurance in the bond surety division. And what bond surety is, just to explain it quickly, is if someone is building a skyscraper, for example, they're going to hire a general contractor to make the building. And if the general contractor, for some reason, cannot complete the work, maybe they go bankrupt, maybe they just run out of resources, what have you, the insurance company, the bond surety company, will pay for the work to get done. And then they work on recuperating those funds from the general contractor that went bankrupt. So it's a very niche area of insurance. So not expecting that to necessarily resonate with anyone, but the context there is that this was very general business as well. I wasn't doing specifically accounting. I wasn't doing specifically finance. And in hindsight, if I was an accounting major, I probably should have been trying to do something in accounting, but everything I did was in general business. So that internship ended up going great. I got a job offer with Great American Insurance. They asked me to move out to Boston. So if you're ever looking to get out of your city, going to college and working in business is a great way to get a job offer somewhere in a different part of the country, or maybe even a different part of the world. It didn't work out because at the same time I got a job offer with Ernst & Young, which is a professional accounting firm. Now, there's a theme here, and you'll see. I knew that Ernst & Young was the best possible place to start your career, because you could go anywhere if you had Ernst & Young on your resume. So the same way that I wanted to start in accounting so that I would have a path to have the flexibility to do whatever type of work I wanted to start at Ernst & Young so I had the flexibility to go to whatever industry or whatever company that I wanted after that. After that, I went to JP Morgan Chase and did some more accounting. So this is literally like counting pennies, right? And booking journal entries. And then after 2 years of that, I knew accounting wasn't for me. And then I decided, hey, what else can I do with a business degree and with accounting background? I can try out finance. And so now I do finance for Procter and Gamble.
Sweet. So you do finance for Procter and Gamble. What does that mean? Like what? Like, I know you mentioned it briefly earlier, but do me a favor and like, what does a regular day look like? Like what's actually your responsibilities?
Yeah, so I'll give you 3 examples of what I do. They're probably the biggest things that I'm responsible for at the company. So number one is forecasting. So our business is selling products in Walmart, Target, Dollar General, etc. And we need to figure out how much money we think we're going to make by the end of the year so that we know how much money to invest in other parts of the business, etc. So I forecast how much money I think we're going to make in the year. So that's one part of my job. Another part of my job is very analysis focused. And what that means is that we have to make decisions about what products to release, how to price those products, which products to put which stores to put the products in. And so I'm doing financial analysis to try to figure out the best way for the company to make money. A very specific example would be that, hey, this year, North America VIX wants to start selling cups with the VIX logo on it. Well, how much should we sell the cups for? I'm trying to help figure out what price we should set in order to sell the cups, because I know that it costs $3 to make the cup. So we should probably try to sell it for, let's say, $5 so that we can make enough money for the company. There's going to be initial investments we have to make. We have to buy machinery that can produce the cups. So I'm trying to figure out, does it make sense for P&G to start selling VIX cups this year? And I have to do all the analysis to figure out if that works.
Okay. How? And how difficult is that? Because what you're saying, I mean, for the average person, we're hearing you say this, and it's like, there's so many different cities, states, towns, like areas that are all needing VIX, which means it's millions. I mean, certain it's millions of product out there related to VIX and all the different brands connected to VIX. I don't know if it's different brands, but different products really connected to VIX. So how difficult is that? Is there a system that you all use that makes life easier? You don't got to tell a system, that might be proprietary stuff. But I'm just saying, just so people can understand how difficult it is to do your job, or if it's a little bit easier than it sounds.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that it's a demanding job in a couple different ways. There's a lot to learn. You have to be very technically capable. So I'm running NPVs, which is net present values. I'm saying, how much money do we need to invest today? How much money are we going to make this year, next year, and the following year? And how much is it going to cost to produce those products? And I'm figuring out how much we're going to make. Now, what I need in order to do that assessment is inputs, right? I need to know how much volume we think we're going to sell. I need to know how much we're going to cannibalize our current business, right? Because if I start selling this cup, somebody who is going to go buy some Vapor Rub might want to say, I'm not going to buy Vapor Rub this time. I'm going to buy the VIX cup instead. And so I lose part of my business, right? And so the other thing I need to know is, how much does it cost to make a cup? Are we going to overcomplicate the supply chain? And so the way I get those inputs is by working with what we call in the business cross-functionals. So people who aren't in finance are helping me get those inputs so that I know exactly what to expect from the business, and I can turn around and help them understand if it's a financially sound decision for the company. So we have marketing research folks who will, kind of try to figure out, well, how many stores do we think we can get this in? Salespeople say, how many stores do we think we can sell this into? And marketing people will say, here's how the packaging should look so that we can maximize the impression that we give to consumers. And, market research folks will say, here's how much volume we think we can sell and how much we're going to cannibalize. And then, we'll have product supply people say, here's how much it's going to cost. in order to produce the product. And I have to take in all those inputs and spit out a financial analysis and a recommendation. And one thing that a lot of people don't know about the finance industry is that it's not all numbers. Most of it is really communicating a message track behind the numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not just saying, hey, we have a great MPV, we should do it, right? No, that's not enough. Yeah, we have a great MPV, but we're kind of resource constrained. And all these are just examples, but we're resource constrained. So maybe we don't have the people right now in order to produce this product, or we'd have to build an entire new plant in order to start producing this product. And we don't think it's right for the business right now. And so you have to figure out how to communicate those things to senior management. And I'm talking like really high up people in the company. And you're influencing their decision to launch this product or not, which is a really big deal. So when you're in finance, I mean, you're really helping the company make these massive decisions on what to prioritize for the business.
Okay. So based off of what you said, you have obviously with P&G, you're in charge of millions. Maybe I don't know if there's a B in there as well that you're responsible for, but you're in charge of at least millions of dollars, and articulating the information related to those numbers to those who need it. And you were previously responsible for millions of dollars as a CPA. When you combine all the salaries, and I'm sure you might have come across somebody with $1 million at some point. I don't know. With that, let's talk compensation. You're in charge of some large numbers, and sometimes people always question. I know I cracked a joke about about finance people making sure their finances are aligned, but when you're responsible for a company and its finances, I would expect that you're potentially being compensated in a way that's fairly. So let's talk CPA entry level salary, because that's one of your first jobs that you mentioned.
Yep.
You have talked about.
For this question, I'll be vague and directional, so that I'm not crossing any lines for any of the companies that I currently work for or previously worked for. But I would say that coming in as a CPA, you will not make a ton of money, and it might sound like a ton of money at first, because I think you could come in probably making anywhere from like 45 to 55,000 entry level. But you have to consider more than just the salary. There's a couple other things. There's benefits. How much of your health care are they going to pay for? Are they going to match on your retirement fund, which is extra money that they're compensating you for? How's the vacation package? But all of that said, there's another big one that people don't typically think about on top of salary. It's how well does this opportunity set me up for the next opportunity? And even though I didn't get paid very much as a CPA at Ernst & Young, I knew that it was going to allow me to get wherever I wanted. My next job after Ernst & Young was JP Chase. They're huge. They're massive. I mean, imagine having Ernst & Young on your resume and then following that up with JP Chase on your resume. So I got more money when I went to JP Chase. I think after a year or two, I was probably somewhere in the like $60,000-ish range. And this isn't company specific information. This is kind of just almost reflective of what happens after being in the industry for a couple years. And my salary curve has kind of gone like this the longer that I've been in business. So, I think that's another great reason to consider finance or accounting or logistics or any type of business, is that there's a very high salary ceiling. And
let's stay here for a second. Let's stay here.
Yeah.
You mentioned Ernst and you mentioned JP. We're not trying to get too deep, because obviously I would assume you may not know the head guy's salary, but what's the potential, the salary potential?
Oh yeah.
If you may have worked for Ernst till you retire, or you would have JP, same thing. We heard what the entry is potentially about 45. which is a solid salary for most people.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good salary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you came out of college with a solid salary. Um, what's the potential for a CPA to be making? What's the upper numbers?
So for CPA, if you work at a CPA firm, I would hazard that within 10 years, you'd certainly be at six figures. I mean, you'd definitely be making over 100,000. I mean, the sky's almost the limit. Like if you're a partner at the firm, which is kind of the highest level of being a CPA, I mean, you're probably upwards of three, four, $500,000 a year in total compensation. So, I mean, the ceiling is super high in business, depending how much of your time, effort, and how willing how hard you're willing to work for it.
Okay. So I graduated at 22. 10 years makes me 32. 15 years makes me 37. By 37, the average CPA, if you had to guess, was probably making what? After 15 years, better yet, not saying the
Yeah,
37.
sure. I'd guess around 150 a year,
50?
150 grand. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So definitely want you to if I'm trying to figure out how to say this because PNG is PNG and that's your current company. I of course want to know the entry level salary for people who work for work in your position, but work for Unilever or PNG or any of your other competitors that are out there. What would be maybe the entry level salary for your position there, and what's
Yeah.
potentially the heights that you could reach?
Yeah, well, entry level depends. Are you coming there straight out of college? Are you coming there after grad school? Are you coming there with some work experience? I came with some work experience, so I couldn't tell you exactly what I would expect someone to make coming in. I would hazard a guess that it's probably somewhere in the, like, I don't know, 50 to $70,000 range.
Okay, that's a big, it's a big difference.
It's a big range, but the way that I think about it is like order of magnitude, right? What's the order of magnitude of salary that you're gonna come into as an entry level employee, and then what type of trajectory do you have for more? The longer you're with the company, you'll maybe start getting things like profit sharing. You might get bonuses. um, you know if you get promoted faster, you'll earn more money. If you get high ratings, you'll earn more money. So it's super variable, even for someone with a similar level of experience, based on what level they are in the company and how long they've been there.
Okay, I started this whole thing off by acknowledging how coveted a position at PNG is. Can you talk about just briefly the test, the famous PNG test?
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
there's a thought process behind why it's done, and yeah, just speak on the test if you could.
So, and I think this is true for internships too, but in order to get into PNG, you have to take a couple of tests. Uh, the first couple tests are sort of like shorter, like, hey, what type of personality do you have? Shape recognition and stuff like that. But then the final test that you have to take is almost like a mini GMAT type of test. So, like, you have to answer these word questions about, like, it's questions like, if a train was moving 45 miles per hour and the second train was moving 60 miles per hour, and they're both trying to deliver a baby to St. Christian Hospital or something, questions like that. And then uh, they're complex questions that you wouldn't expect to have to take in order to get a job, and you do have to pass that test in order to get an offer. So even if you had a great interview, it doesn't matter if you don't pass the test. It's very black or white. Now, I don't know this for sure. As I understand it, the test was created by some PhDs or something like that. and the test is supposed to be really, really definitive in terms of if you can pass the test, you can be successful at P&G. And I would say that the talent and caliber of people at P&G is really high. I could not tell you how much it's related to the test or not, but I think they're doing something right.
Okay. Okay. This test. Far up, and I don't, and maybe you shouldn't answer this one. I'm very curious to know how far up does this test go? Like, if I was working for your competitor and
Yeah,
I was a leader in that company, let's just say vice president level,
yeah.
um, do I gotta take this test? You headhunted me.
Mm.
You were a head, you caught a headhunter and had them coach me out of Unilever to come over here to you. Why? Why am I taking this test?
You know, it's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. I had
Like,
previous
did
work
your CEO
experience.
have to take the test? No.
I had to take it. I had to take it, and I had 3 years work experience. So, um, so yeah, I don't know what the criteria is to have to take the test. I think most people have to take the test though.
Not respectfully, because most
Yeah.
people are gonna be in the leadership, normal jobs. They're not gonna be in C-suite. Yeah, that's why it's
Yeah.
C-suite. The C-suite has very, very few and select people in there.
Yeah.
Therefore, if you're recruiting a CFO, and I'm a CFO for, let's say, Key Bank, do I
Yeah.
really need to take your test?
I
And
would guess. I would guess no. I would guess no. But I would also guess that a CEO would probably pass it pretty handily.
I understand that. I'm not taking anything away from it. I'm just saying, like, at what point in your profession, like, if I'm 45 and I'm very well established, and you try to get me to come work for you, or it's like I gotta take a test?
Right.
No.
So some people pass on it altogether. They're like, I'm not taking a test. I'm not doing that.
I've been in the industry for 25 years. I think my test was the proof that I was able to withstand that.
Right. You would think so. You would think so, man. I
Okay.
don't know. I'm just glad I passed it.
Exactly. I had to ask. I had to ask. I know a couple people who didn't pass, and I know
Oh
several
yeah.
who have passed. So
It's not an easy test. Yeah. It's not easy. I think I finished the test and I had maybe a minute and a half left on the timer. So it's a time test too. And you have to take it in person. It's not like you can't sit at home and Google the answers. Yeah, they don't
good
play
on
with
you.
the test. They don't
Good,
play.
good on you. No, I'm good. We've offline had this conversation already about the test, and I'm gonna just let it be that. Okay, man. All right. So I think we've covered a lot of really good points, and in this conversation about finance in general. What are some of the best resources out there to learn finance? I know you said you may not be a big person on actually reading, which I am very, very surprised to hear. Um, but is there a particular YouTube channel that you frequent that has allowed you to continuously learn more, or what are some of the resources you're using to continue to develop your understanding? Because you said within this year you learned how to. What was it that you just learned within a year?
Refinancing. Yeah,
Finance. Yeah.
refinancing a home. So I look at this YouTube channel called Bigger Pockets. They have a website. Love Bigger Pockets. Based on the smile.
They
I'm
were
guessing you're familiar.
with when the whole tax information came out about Trump. They sent me a long email, and then you click the link, and as soon as you go to the link, you look at the bottom. It's just a whole comment section filled with people talking about President Trump and how he did it and why
Yeah.
it was this. So that's that was one of those people, one of those organizations that I definitely seen a whole
Oh
lot.
yeah.
Of
Yeah, they're really good. I love the way they present information. So, I've been thinking about, when we're ready to move out of this house, do we want to keep our current house and rent it out? Does it make sense to give up the positive equity that I have in the home in order to create passive income going forward? Or do I want to take advantage of the high housing market prices in order to capitalize on that equity and roll it into the new home? So, questions like that, I never would have been able to answer before I started looking at Bigger Pockets. So I think that's a great one. Another one that I really enjoy is NPR. Has a really good program with a guy named Kai Rizdal, and I cannot remember the exact name of that program, but that's really good. I also listen to other NPR programs and a lot of different podcasts about money. I think that's a great way. And in Mario, I can look those up and send you a couple recommendations.
Please do.
But yeah,
They're right.
podcasts and YouTube videos. Yeah, right, exactly. Podcast in his hand right here.
Yeah, definitely send me those names. Okay, okay. Are there any famous books in your industry that people like to talk about, or maybe seminars, organizations that help you stay sharp? I mean, I know finance is finance, has been finance since freaking Mansa Musa was the richest man in the world and the richest man ever. But it was been done differently throughout time.
Yep.
And so, with all the different advancements, with all the different technology, I'm sure the different trainings that a company like P&G or all the ones that you've worked for are sending their employees off to continue to stay sharp, to learn. And what are some of those things or organizations, if you care to share?
You know, one of the reasons I chose Procter and Gamble is because they have such a strong culture of learning. Because they typically promote people from within, so they'll hire you kind of young in your career, and they like to keep you in the company for a long time and promote you through the ranks. And what that means is that they're inherently invested in your education and constantly investing in you as an employee. So I say that to say that we have a lot of internal resources in order to make sure that our skills are staying sharp. So several times a year, I'm taking a day off in order to do training to learn how to run MPVs better, or how to use Excel more efficiently, or how to understand certain parts of the tax code, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So one way to make the most of the company that you choose is to make sure that they are willing to continually invest in your education, which is going to help you in that company, and it'll help you whenever and if ever you're interested in moving to another organization.
Okay. Have you had any mentors on your journey to this position?
Yeah, you know what? I did not do a good job of taking advantage of mentors before I got into Procter and Gamble, and now I have several, which has been super helpful for me. It's helped me progress through my career at P&G. I think if I ever chose to leave P&G for any reason, I would still be able to maintain that relationship with those people to make sure that I'm making the most out of my career going forward. I wish I would have gotten mentors sooner, but
How did they
no,
help you?
I didn't have any before P&G.
Okay. So how you mentioned that they've helped you so much in your progress. So how have they helped you, and how could they have helped you in the past?
Yeah, typically advocacy is a really big one. So to give an example, if my boss knows that I'm taking advantage of all these other high level leaders in the company to ask them questions about, like, hey, what job should I take next in order to get promoted? Or hey, can you talk to my manager for me to help me understand what I could be doing better in my job? Or you can have a sponsor too, which is sort of a little bit different than a mentor, in the sense that your sponsor's job is to advocate for you. You're almost tying your careers together in a way that if you succeed, your sponsor is succeeding, and vice versa. And so a sponsor will speak up on your behalf. uh, One of my sponsors is on the talent council, so when they're considering who to give high ratings to, who's going to get what job next, who's going to get promoted next, I have somebody in the room that knows my name, that knows what I'm capable of, and is willing to say, hey, I know Howard does a great job. What about Howard? Right. And if Tony doesn't have any advocates in the room, then Tony's name probably isn't going to get brought up as easily as my name. So mentors within an organization are super, super useful. And the reason that I wish I had mentors outside of the organization is that I would have been knowledgeable on these things that I've been tripping over, most of my life. Hey, mentor, I got to dress business casual this Friday. What does that mean? Um, hey, mentor, I'm not really enjoying my job at Ernst & Young because I think I'm not all that into accounting. What should I do next? Hey, mentor, what type of job should I get if ultimately I want to be doing financial planning and analysis at P&G? Like, what stepping stones do I need in order to get there? I lucked up. But if I was intentional about having, if I were intentional about having mentors, then I probably could have gotten there a lot faster.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would be performing a disservice to everyone who's watching, especially who grew up the way I grew up, and sounds like may have grew up similar to you. If I did not ask, can you talk about how you began to learn how to be professional? What resources? Because obviously you talked about just being in an environment. You graduated. You were an educated person. Like being educated does not stop someone from still having a slang lingo because that's how they may have grew up in that type of environment. And,
Yeah.
and so clearly you learned how to adjust. You also mentioned at some point during the internship that you decided to show up in jeans and a t-shirt. Uh, Pretty sure the shoes were probably tennis shoes or whatever. Um,
Bro, yes.
so how did you learn? I mean, maybe you learned the hard way, like that moment, through somebody actually pulling to something. Like, hey man, let's
Yeah.
go right now. The outfit is great, but this ain't the place for it.
Yeah.
So can you talk about how you began to learn about professionalism when it comes to
Yeah. For
the whole
me,
stuff and everything?
for me, it started with my parents. They had a huge emphasis on grammar and vocabulary, and presentation in general. Dining etiquette, stuff like that gave me a huge head start, I think, in terms of making sure that I could interview properly, that I was presenting myself in a way I knew how to dress, how to speak. And not everybody has those things. And I definitely recognize that. And I think that's one way that my parents looked out for me. So learn how to dress, learn how to present yourself, learn how to speak up, enunciate. And there are etiquette classes out there that you can take to learn how to dine properly. There are YouTube videos that you can look up how to tie a tie, how to wear a suit properly, how to wear a jacket, what's the difference between a sport coat and a suit, etc. All these things I think are super helpful. And one of the most intimidating things about going into the business world, coming from a place, I grew up in a way that I didn't necessarily know what all that was going to entail for me. Is that a lot of the people you're around have known it for decades and generations. Like they don't have to think about those things. Like they just already know it. It's a given. So for me, that was a little bit challenging. I think with all the resources today, it's so easy to hop on YouTube and you're picking up that I'm a very visual person, not so much a read a book type, but I like to see it and touch it and hold it and experience it in order to learn it. So that's one way to do it. So make sure you have all those things tight. And then uh, a lot of the professionalism comes with experience, how to write emails, how to present to people. That stuff happens in school. So for a lot of people who are goofing off in that public communications class or the etiquette course at their school, are really doing themselves like a huge disservice. And I know it's hard to believe it until it's 10 years later and you're working at P&G and you're like, dang, I wish I would have paid more attention in that class. But I think those are ways that really help me learn how to be professional over time.
Okay. So it sounds like you simply made a mistake in those couple instances. Like you were probably a little bit more comfortable
Yeah.
then you realize, and then a moment happened, and you're like, "Oh, okay, let's cut the lingo out and just talk in the way that I know I'm capable of speaking and being able to just blend in." It doesn't sound so. Based off what you're saying, it doesn't sound like it was a major adjustment. It was just a recognition of, all right, I recognize and forgot where I was at. And so I
Yeah.
should shift in this moment to the person that they need me to be.
Yeah, that's right. I kind of fell on my face a couple times and learned the hard way. And I think you can learn a lot from observing other people around you. How are they acting? How are they speaking? How are they engaging? But really, you just got to get out there and do it, and not being intimidated to put yourself in that place in the first place. And then, like I said, get mentors and coaches to help you understand exactly how to act and present yourself, so that you don't run into those issues like I did.
Okay. All right. Well, we're definitely pretty much at the end of this. So, do you got any major takeaways or anything else that you really want to share with our audience?
Yeah, I do. I think this is in the same vein as having a mentor. But if you can shadow somebody or you can speak to somebody who's in the industry that you think you want to go into, it is so hard to know. Like, you're sitting in a lecture and you're learning about finance and accounting, but you don't know what it's like to work in a company day in and day out. You know, what are the expectations going to be? Do I have to go into the office every day? How many hours a week am I going to work? What's the compensation going to be like? If your goal is to be a CFO, like, you might not be able to do that as an accountant. You might have to go into the finance route in order to become a CFO, stuff like that. So try to figure out what your goals even might be, or if you're even curious, try to find somebody in that industry so that you can figure out what day-to-day life really looks like. And as much as I enjoy finance and as much as I enjoy P&G, it's very demanding from a expectations point of view. It's very demanding from a time point of view. And those are trade-offs in order to a career that's going to allow me to earn a lot in wages, a career that is going to give me many, many options if I wanted to ever do something else. Um, and so just think about what it is you want from life, and educate yourself on what it takes to get there.
Okay. And listen, y'all. Y'all know me. You know that I have a habit of bringing this up in almost every interview. But guess what? I am not priming any of these people to say any of this information outside of making sure it's a clear, actual job description slash breakdown of exactly how they got here. I'm saying this to say he highlighted at some point in this interview multiple times. We talked about mentors, but he also highlighted the fact of it's not just what you know, because he's learned a whole lot in this time period, as we've proven. It's not just who you know, but as you hear me talk about every time, it's who know you, who knows you, because who knows you is the person who can articulate what you're capable of when you're not present, to call them for the opportunity that they're making you aware of.
Yep.
So you need to make sure that you're making sure that you're in the right position, in the right place, because frankly, opportunity isn't necessarily waiting for you to just be sitting in your room. It's waiting for you to show up where it is. And sometimes it's difficult, but frankly, success leaves clues. And a part of the clues are how to get there, as well as where those people are. Usually, if you need to figure out who knows money, let's at least start off at the bank. Why? Because they literally work with money. And then we can work from there after we ask those people a couple questions. It has clues. Don't sit here and just work blindly. You know, that's why we do this whole interviewing, is to make sure that you know exactly how to get to the opportunities that are out there that you may not have been aware of. And one of the last things that I feel was very important, just like I mentioned, make sure that you are open to positions that are in the finance industry, business industry, all those different things that I've mentioned, whether it's major or minor. But if anything, as he's highlighted today, make sure that you are in a position to be doing positions, jobs, as well as degrees or trades that allow you to be flexible professionally. So if you want to move out of one, you can go into maybe a whole different company and still succeed because your skills are transferable. I think that's what I took from today's interview.
That's
And I appreciate everything you gave. I hope people got something from it. I'm certain they had to. It's been pretty fun. I don't know how it was for you, but man, thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
Yeah, this was wonderful. I think you hit the nail on the head so many times with the questions, and I think I maybe even learned some things about myself by answering them. So it was fun, informative, and I got a lot out of it personally. So I appreciate it.
Most definitely. And like that, man, to it is.
Peace.
Oh, all right. Thanks, bro.